Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, we're going to go over how to set up and configure your Escort Max 360C radar detector. Now, there's two different ways of actually programming the detector. You can go into the detector's menu by pressing and holding sensitivity and bright, and then you can go through all the different menu options, and then when you see something you want to change, you can do it all right here, right? That definitely works, and that works well. But an easier way to do it is to actually do it through your phone. In the phone, you're going to be able to go in and adjust all the same different options here, maybe the display color like this, and this is going to be a lot easier than going through the menu in your radar detector. So we're going to actually configure everything through the phone because, well, it's just a little bit easier. Now, in order to connect, you're going to want to make sure you go under Devices. Now, if you're not connected, you're going to see a Bluetooth icon right here. Then, once you actually connect to your phone via Escort Live, so you can see right here, Max 360C, we're connected, the Bluetooth icon here gets replaced by a speed limit for whatever road that you're on. You can see right now the speed limit icon matches the display color, so it's in blue, right? That lets me know that I'm connected to Escort Live via Bluetooth. Now when I connect via Wi-Fi, this is going to change color and it's no longer going to match my display color. It's always going to be in white. So let's go ahead and do that next. We're going to go to Wi-Fi settings. And now I've got my phone actually connected, you can see via Wi-Fi. My phone is connected to the Wi-Fi hotspot that I want my radar detector to connect to. Whether, in this case, I'm using the Wi-Fi hotspot in my house, but ideally the radar or the Wi-Fi hotspot that's built into your car that you can access while driving. So I'm going to do connect to Wi-Fi, and you can see extension 2 is the name of the Wi-Fi hotspot that I want my radar detector to connect to. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type in my password. Then I'm going to hit join. And now my radar detector is going to go ahead and join the Wi-Fi hotspot that I want to connect it to, and you'll see it'll go ahead and change the icon there on the left, and now it's in white, which lets us know that we're now connected via Wi-Fi to Escort Live, and I no longer need my phone for accessing all the Escort Live stuff. But what's nice is I can still go and change all of my radar detector settings even though it's connected via Wi-Fi for all the cloud alerts, which is pretty cool. So actually one tip I can show you if you want to see, if you press and hold the brightness button, once you're connected to Wi-Fi, you'll see Wi-Fi info pops up like this. And what it'll tell you here is some Wi-Fi information, including the hotspot you're connected to and your IP address. Also tells you your signal strength and whatever channel you're connected to via Wi-Fi. So you've got some additional information here for whatever hotspot that you're connected to, which is pretty slick. Once you're done, just press and hold the brightness button here for like a second or two, and then it'll drop you back to the main menu. So cool little tip there. Anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and go through the different options here as far as programming the Max 360C. We'll start with sensitivity. You can adjust the sensitivity of the detector. Highway mode is going to give you full sensitivity at all times on all bands, including X-band, K-band, and Ka. There may be times when you want to actually dial back the sensitivity to reduce the false alerts, especially in town. In that situation, you can run auto mode. Auto mode will reduce the sensitivity of X-band and K-band, not Ka-band, X and K when you're driving at lower speeds in town. Really nice when you're sitting at a red light and you're not worried about, the automatic door opener next to you or something. This will help dial back the false alerts, but it will also affect sensitivity to legitimate police radar. So that's the trade-off. Auto no X is the same idea, but it will turn off X-band altogether. So you got that option there if you like it. But auto low K is kind of like auto mode, with the exception of it actually drops K-band sensitivity specifically even further to cut back on false alerts even more. Be aware that will really impact your radar detection capabilities, but that's another option for you here. Cool, looks like we're back in. That's cool. I prefer auto mode typically, or highway if I know there's a lot of radar in use. Those are the two that I typically go between. Now, auto locate I guess would be nice if you really want a quiet detector you're on a phone or your girlfriend's next to you or something, right? Okay, now as far as adjusting the brightness of the display, dark mode is going to basically give us a blacked out screen. However, when we get an alert, you can see we can hear the alert, and well, I'll let it go away. We can still hear the alert, but we won't see anything on screen. It will not light up the display, and it will not light up our arrows when we get the alert. If we do want an alert and be able to see things, we can adjust our display brightness. You can see we've got a couple different options depending on how bright we want the screen. I prefer auto mode because, well, I like it being brighter in the daytime and then automatically reducing the display brightness at night. There's an ambient light sensor in here. A pretty cool feature. I like the automatic display brightness. Now, as far as the pilot screen, you have the option of how you want the display to look when there's no alert present. Scanning bar is the default. You can see we have this kind of Knight Rider-esque scanning bar. Personally, I find it to be a little bit distracting and it takes away from other relevant information, so I prefer full word like this. Meter mode. Now we have a couple different ways of actually displaying information on screen when an alert is present. Standard mode like this will display, and I'll mute it real quick. It'll display the band and it will display the signal strength like this. And then of course you've got your arrows around the side. Standard FR1 is a little bit different. You can see independently the front and rear signal strength like that. And then you can also see how many signals are present right there. So one signal, you can see if front and rear are the same, we'll get the side arrows. Otherwise, if one is stronger than the other, we'll get front or rear arrows. Standard FR2 is similar, except it allows for the presence of multiple signals to be detected simultaneously. In this situation, you'll notice only one of the things are lighting up, right? So if it's a rear signal, only the rear one is there. If the front signal strength is longer, we'll see the front one light up. And what's nice about this is it's going to allow us to display, maybe multiple signals simultaneously. So check this out. Front KA, rear K band, and now both rear signal. Right, so I know that was a little bit fast, but the idea is when you have multiple signals like this, I'll light them up here again real quick. There we go. So you can see it can display front and rear more independently and giving us more signals. You can see the 2 in the middle. It means it's detecting 2 signals simultaneously. Very cool. I like that because I like having all the extra information and understanding better what's going on around me. Spec FR1 is similar to standard FR1 with the exception of it will display the frequency of the primary signal right here on screen. Frequency, really useful to figure out a little bit more information, so I find that useful. And then Spec FR2, which is the mode that I actually run myself day to day, is standard FR2. I'll go ahead and actually mute it real quick. It's standard FR2, except you also have the frequency information. So you can see once the KA signal is detected and overrides the K-band signal, I can see the frequency, 34.675. I can see there's 2 signals. I can see the direction that they're both coming from. I've got the arrows. I know it's quite a bit going on, but once you get comfortable with it, and I know with a radar gun, sitting here in the car, they're going to bounce around like crazy. That's not super realistic. But in practice, Spec FR2 is going to give you a lot of really useful information, including signal strength, frequency, as well as direction of multiple signals, which is why I really like it. Now, speaking of multiple signals, Expert FR is going to allow you to display, more than like 2 signals at a time. So I can see I've got 1 K-band signal. There's my front and rear signal strength and my primary signal. If I add an additional signal, which is going to be KA, you can see I've got the front and rear signal strength of 2 different signals. And I can do this for up to 4 signals at a time. So if you want to be able to detect what's going on with, 4 signals like that, and you don't care as much about the frequency, Expert FR mode is going to give you that information. And then finally, simple is going to be, well, super simple. The idea is when you're detecting a signal, it reports it to the cloud, because in this case it's KA. Oh, that's my audio Doppler. You can see it says slow down right there. The idea is if you're traveling over the speed limit, it'll say slow down. If you're traveling under the speed limit, it'll give you a yellow display option that says caution. So you've got, a couple different ways of actually displaying information if you want maybe something super simple. Again, my personal preference is Spec FR2 because I get the most amount of useful information the way that I like it, but you can choose what works best for you. Okay, moving on, we can also customize our bands. So single, the way single works is it's only going to be pointing to the primary signal, which, by default, the priority is, laser first, which actually goes in all directions, KA, then K-band, then laser. So we have, then X-band, sorry, in that order. When we're getting multiple signals, maybe multiple K-band signals, it can choose the stronger one or whichever one it deems the highest priority alert. That's what's going to be displayed here on screen under single mode. Now, what's also really useful is to have multiple signals displayed with the arrows. And in this situation, when that happens, we can actually display multiple signals and it'll actually blink when it's detecting different signals. So you can see the primary one are the side arrows, the secondary one is back behind. And that's useful for telling you when there's multiple signals and you can track, again, a little bit more information at a time. Otherwise, we've got different colors for direction like you saw. Maybe blue here, red there, depending on the direction. Now, finally, we've also got band colored arrows. This is going to identify the band of the radar signal by color. So you're going to see here, K-band is going to be in blue no matter the direction, right? Ka band and laser will show up in red. So laser and Ka is red, K-band is blue, and then X-band is going to be green. So by this, you can actually tell what band the signal is just by looking at the color of the arrows. So a couple different ways of actually controlling the arrows. Either doing the primary signal is the only one the arrows are going to point towards, or several signals simultaneously and actually blinking towards the primary threat, or having the arrows actually color-coded by band, depending on what you want. So again, a couple different ways of actually customizing the arrows for your Max 360C as well. Next up, we have auto mute functionality. Auto mute is going to basically reduce the volume of the detector after a couple seconds once it has our attention. So full volume initially, then reduced volume. Check this out. Oops. And in this case, it automatically learned that as a false alert because I've been sitting here with, constantly hitting it. So let's actually do the same thing with Ka real quick, and then you'll hear the auto mute in action. So a couple things there. At first you heard that dee-dee, right? What that means is it detected a new signal and it wanted to get my attention. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. That's going to be important too. But you heard it actually alerted at full volume and then it reduced the volume, right? That's the auto mute functionality. You can adjust how far down it reduces the volume after a couple seconds. So low would be the quietest, high would be the loudest kind of auto mute setting. And you can try it, for yourself and see which one works best for you. It's nice, once it has your attention, got it, don't have to keep screaming, maybe quiet down a little bit, I'm paying attention now, So useful feature there. Now remember how it had that kind of double beep before it started alerting to Ka? That was because I had it set to standard plus. The idea is when you detect a new bogey, a new additional signal, it will do that to get your attention and let you know, hey, there's another signal that's going on now, maybe a second K-band alert. This isn't the same K-band alert, or it's also Ka or whatever. That is really helpful to let you know there's a new signal. If you don't want that and you want just the standard Escort alert tones that you've been hearing, you can do standard. Mild is a little bit different. Basically, when you get a mild alert, it'll just sound like a door chime. Like that. Personally, I like having the normal alert tones. I can hear the ramp up of the signal to determine the signal strength without looking, so I find that useful. And then of course standard plus to know when there's an additional signal now present. So that's what I like. ZR3 mode. That's basically if you're running Escort's laser jammers. If you are, you have the ability to tell the laser jammers to, well, jam, or what Escort calls shift, same thing. You tell the laser jammers to jam or shift when you're being shot with laser. If you want them to only detect laser but not jam, you can set receive only. Or you can turn off your laser jammers completely. By default, I believe the option is shift. It doesn't actually have any impact if you're not using Escort's laser jammers. Laser detection on the radar detector is controlled separately, so it doesn't actually matter what you have set to, but I just kind of turn it off because I'm not using Escort's laser jammers anyway. So that's the option there. Voice is going to do a couple different things. So when we have it turned on, when we go into the menu,
Preferences,
it'll actually, say
mode, advanced,
all this stuff.
pilot mode, full word, completed.
So it can say all that, right? Additionally, when you get a radar alert, it can actually announce the band of the signal that you are detecting.
Ka band.
That, so announce the band, reported it to Escort Live first, and then gave me the ramp up. So that's how that works. I'm noticing it's actually, not giving me the audio alert initially. It's actually reporting it to the cloud and then it's alerting. So that's something there. Anyway, as far as the voice, I like it turned off. Auto power is a useful feature for those of you guys who plug your radar detector into a power source that's always powered even while you're driving. You could park overnight, come back to your car, and your radar detector has drained your car battery, and you can't start up next time, right? The idea is after, let's say, 4 hours or so, the detector will automatically turn itself off so that it doesn't drain your car battery too much. Useful feature for those of you guys who have a power source that's always powered. A quick note, when you're using this option, the detector display will automatically turn off after 30 minutes. The detector will still be on. In case you resume driving, the display will turn back on. But for those of you guys who are using it, display turns off after 30 minutes, and then the whole detector turns off after whatever time option you set here. Units, you can choose miles per hour, which you can see right there, or kilometers per hour, depending on what's appropriate for you. GPS filter, if you want the GPS-based false alert filtering functionality, really useful. You can turn it on, or you could turn it off if you like, but that's kind of one of the reasons you buy a detector like this. Auto learn, remember how earlier we saw that it actually said stored on screen? After it keeps seeing the same signal in the same location over and over, it'll learn that as a false alert and then store it and filter it out for you in the future. Very useful feature, and that's the auto learn functionality here. Works for grocery stores with automatic door openers, speed signs on the side of the road, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now let's go to cruise alert. Cruise alert is basically low speed muting. If you've noticed, when we've been hitting it with radar, it just keeps alerting and screaming, right? We do have auto mute to reduce the volume, but it is going to alert normally. If we like, we can actually do something here like this, which is basically going to give us 2 braps, basically, and then go totally silent. Listen to this. Hear that? We got 2 beeps, and then the detector went completely silent. Not reduced volume, completely silent. That's cruise alert. That's basically low-speed muting functionality. It applies to every band of radar, X, K, and KA, as well as laser. So if you're driving around town and you want the detector to be extra quiet, you can set the option here. One tip, when you're connected to Escort Live and you're driving around on the roads, I'm in a parking lot now, so I don't have a speed limit here, but on the road that I'm on, this low-speed muting threshold will be replaced by the speed limit for the road that you're on, which is typically correct. And the idea is if you're not speeding, the detector is going to do the double brap like this. If you're above the speed limit, the detector will alert normally. Bear in mind, this does not always, it's not always correct, and it doesn't take into account temporary changes in the speed limit, such as school zones or construction zones. So it is possible for this to be incorrect and for this detector to be muting itself even if you're speeding. So be aware of that. There's no way to actually stop that from happening unless you maybe disable cruise alert functionality altogether, or you don't connect to Escort Live at all. But if you're using cruise alert for low speed muting and Escort Live simultaneously, it will always, there is no way to change this, it will always overwrite this number with whatever it has here in the speed limit. So be aware that that's how your detector is going to function. Okay, so we've got unknown setting, stuff that's just going to be added later, so don't worry about that. Dark mode, looks like that's something new as well. It wasn't there earlier, and you can see we've got unknown option here as well. A couple different options. Escort says this is going to be something that's going to be added later, so yeah. Overspeed alert. When you're not connected to Escort Live, this will change and it will say OSP. And the idea is, if you're traveling over a set speed, the detector can warn you. So if you know, like, hey, I definitely don't want to be driving over 75 miles an hour, the detector can remind you and give you a notification. So it goes all the way up to 160, it looks like. So a heads up, just an additional reminder to help you avoid speeding. So there's the option there. We can also change our different language if you want English or Espanol. You got your option there. All right, so display colors, you can see we got a couple different options. Choose whatever you like, maybe whatever matches the interior of your vehicle's instrument cluster. So a couple different options. Again, just user preference. Display speed on screen. If you wanted to display the speed like this, you can do that. If you turn it off, it'll display the voltage of whatever power source that you have. So your car's alternator, or in this case, a battery pack that I'm using. So you've got the voltage display there. I personally prefer speed. I find that more useful. User mode. Advanced is going to open up all the different options here in the detector. Novice just gives you like some of the super basic stuff, like adjusting the display color and a few other simple things, but you don't get all of the fine detailed stuff. Personally, I prefer advanced because, well, I like all the options. If you're kind of newer at things, don't worry about it. Novice is fine. Again, unknown setting is stuff that Escort's going to add later. Okay, so let's move on now to the band settings. So if you want laser detection functionality from your detector, you can turn it on, and when you get alerted, it'll notify you, and then that information goes out to the cloud. Cool. POP is a very fast form of radar that's designed to try and defeat radar detectors. I've done a ton of information about it. It's almost not in use at all. It's not legal to issue tickets. It's not accurate. And cops would have to, even if they did use it, they would use POP and the normal radar. So basically turn it off. You will get false alerts on POP, and you will negatively impact the performance of your detector because it's constantly hyper-focused on these super quick pop shots. Again, turn it off, you'll get better performance, reduce false alerts, and you're not going to be bothering detecting a type of radar that isn't even in use in the first place. KA band is used virtually everywhere in the country, so you'll want it turned on. If you want to access any of these segments here on KA band, you're going to need to turn off KA and then use the different segments, which I know sounds a little crazy, but you can see I've got KA actually turned off here. I can hit it with KA band, and you'll notice the detector is still going to alert to KA, right? So don't be scared if you got to turn it off. That is how it works with Escort detectors. Turn off KA band, and then you get access to the different segments here. Now, quick note, these segments for the Max 360C do not impact performance. We were told initially that they do, which is actually what happens on many other detectors. Like here's the Redline EX. It also applies on the original Redline, and some of the analog detectors like this, it actually makes a huge impact to performance. That's not the case on a digital Max 360C. The detector is able to scan all of KA band very quickly, so it doesn't necessarily need to rely on segmentation the way some of the older analog detectors did. This only affects muting. You decide which frequencies the detector alerts to, not which frequencies it scans for. You'll notice the segments that we would normally use in the US are 2, 5, and 8, but by default it's 3, 4, 5, 8. So they're actually set up for international usage, where drivers overseas actually have different frequencies of police radar. So kind of to boil it down, the band segmentation is designed for international users, not American users, to selectively choose which frequencies the radar detectors will and will not alert to. Here in the US, it's not really that useful, but it is an option that's available. Same thing with K-band. You can see we've got K-band on and off. And if we want to access our couple different segments, I'll put what the frequency ranges are on screen for that too. We can turn it off. Again, this is designed for international users where maybe their police officers operate on very small subsections within K-band. Here in the US, police transmit all over the place, so you want to scan all of K-band, but internationally that is a useful feature for people in some countries. X-band, if you want to turn it on, you can definitely do that. It's actively in use in Ohio and New Jersey, as well as a few rural places around the world. I'll put some information in the video description where you can find out what bands are in use in your area. But for most of the country, it's going to be like this. California, you can run with K-band turned off altogether, and well, turn off the segments too, because it's almost exclusively KA. But for most of the country, you're going to be looking at K and KA on. Ohio, New Jersey, run it like that. Awesome. TSR stands for traffic sensor rejection. On the highway and many parts of the country, they have traffic sensors which send blasts of K-band radar to measure the flow of traffic. Those will trigger very regular K-band false alerts on your detector. If you encounter those, turn on TSR. I believe it's on by default. Otherwise, turn it off. You will get better performance with it turned off. And then we've got our segmentation options. And then finally, at the very bottom, we have the ability for the detector to alert us to a variety of different known, red light cameras, speed cameras, that kind of stuff. So if you want to get notified to red light cameras, to speed cameras, to known speed traps, things like that, you've got all the options here. As far as other locations, red light speed cameras are basically, speed cameras that are built into red light cameras, as opposed to just having them individually. And then finally, air patrol is locations where air-based speed enforcement from planes or helicopters is commonly done. It won't tell you if it's being enforced now. It just tells you you're in an area where air enforcement is commonly operated. So I believe this is off by default. You can turn it on if you like that. I find it helpful. If you get a lot of falses or whatever, just turn it off. Finally, one other thing. You also have the options of, if you go into the detector, there's a few other things that are not in the phone that are only accessible in the detector. So to do that, we're going to go over here. You can see we've got Wi-Fi. We can turn it on and off. We also can turn Bluetooth on and off as desired. We can also turn on and off the different automatic updates. So if you want automatic updates, you can turn that off. If you wanted to only automatically update the red light camera database, or only the firmware for the detector, or if you want to update both the red light camera and the firmware updates, you've got that option there. And then if you want to manually trigger a Wi-Fi, or database update or a firmware update, well, let's actually go ahead and do that. Go ahead and trigger that. It's the button, update firmware. So bright says activate that, and then we'll say plus for yes. Oops, let's try it again. Kick me out because it wasn't fast enough. We'll say yes, it's going to request the update, and if there's a firmware update applicable, it will go ahead and do it, or it will give me an error. Let's try the other one real quick. Okay, well, it's not working now for some reason, but I've done it before, and I'll play that on screen. This is what it does, if there's no update present. If there is an update present, then yeah, it takes a couple minutes or so to download everything and update your detector. But those are a couple options that you have in the detector. And there were also things like, here, I'll show you this real quick. If you want to clear any of the different locations, like if you want to clear all your lockouts or your red light camera database, or you want to clear everything, including your manually marked locations, which is what this option is, you have that option there. Cool. And then we go back into all of everything else that's available here in the phone. So anyway, there you go. There's a look at all the different settings and options here within the Max 360C. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. Again, I've got all this stuff on my website as well if you want to read over anything. If you need to buy the detector, link for that is in the video description too. So awesome. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys have found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.